I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Ralf Kubli, board member of the Casper Association. Ralf, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time today.
Well, thanks a lot for having me.
You're very welcome. I've been following Casper Network for a few years now, and excited to hear about the latest developments that the team has been working on. But I'd love to kick off our conversation together with just hearing a little bit about your background and how you got into blockchain and how that really led you to being a board member with the Casper Association, and then we'll dive into all the latest details.
Thanks a lot, Ashton. So, yeah, I started my university time just when the internet started to become really interesting, and the Web 2, so to speak. It came with graphical user interfaces, so that was in the early 90s. So I obtained my first email in 93. I coded HTML 94 to 96. So wow. Many of your listeners probably were not even born then. But and then curiously, in 96, I left the space. I basically stopped coding HTML. I don't remember why. But a very successful family member who was in the computer industry suggested in 1995 that I stopped going to the university now and stopped studying and go to the US. I lived in Switzerland at the time. And go to the US and learn everything about the web. And I didn't do that in 95. So, and then I finished my studies and I started working in industrial environments, and I did all kinds of things, classic management career. And then in 2015, I came across Ethereum. I mean, I knew about Bitcoin, but I came across Ethereum 15, 16, and I started to understand the potential of the technology, and I got really excited. And I said, I'm given a second chance in life, so I better take it. And I put all effort in 2016 to get into the space and to find employment. And I ended up with a venture capital firm here in Switzerland that invested in early stage startups in blockchain, and also took an active role in enhancing and making sure that the regulatory environment in Switzerland is advantageous for the technology. And I got very excited, and that's how I got into the space. And today I'm active as a board member of the Casper Association, and I support some other projects as well.
That's very cool. And I know that Switzerland is like a great hub for crypto growth and innovation. So it's great to hear that you've had a part in that and making sure the regulatory side is proper, which is an important aspect, especially right now with the recent events in cryptocurrency. And now I'm curious on moving into the board member position at the Casper Association and Casper Network. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Casper, why you think it's a great protocol, and a little bit of the history leading up to now.
Sure. So the founders of the Casper protocol, or the technology, started really by wanting to overcome the fundamental problems of adoption of this technology of blockchain and blockchains in general. And both Mariano Manohar and Mehta Harlikar come from enterprise environments, and they said, hey, we believe that adoption and also mass adoption must come from technology that can be easily integrated into existing application environments. And that is really the principles upon which we have built this technology and are continuing to build this technology. And that finds its expression in a few ways. So at the time when Casper Labs was founded and the work on the core protocol was started 4 years ago, the choice of Rust was a very early choice, and there were not many protocols that were building on Rust. Today, it is the winning language and probably the main language that this blockchain infrastructure is being developed on. Another aspect is the modularity of the blockchain, and so we have built this blockchain in a way that certain elements can be upgraded independently. So we recently upgraded the database or changed the database. The team is working on a new consensus mechanism. It's important to note that we are not an EVM compatible chain. We have our own EVM, and and account models and contract management will be merged in one of the next releases. So it is this kind of environment, and also the other aspect is we would like to use developer environments and developer tools that are already known to very large numbers of developers, and not create our own or not spend resources, time of other developers creating like testing environments, for example.
Definitely, all great information, sort of leading up to becoming a protocol that can have an expansive development ecosystem that enables more dApps to come out easier. The growth of DeFi and NFTs as well on Casper, which I'm sort of looking forward to seeing happen. Is with most recent network developments at Casper, is this at a turning point where all of that is starting to be capable, or is that already happening?
So obviously, it's still early in the technology. I think we have a good platform. There are already productive environments deployed on Casper. It's important to note that while we sometimes are perceived to have only an enterprise focus, that is certainly not the case. We just think that enterprise technology should be made available in this space, to a very large number of users. And it just happens so that, if you build enterprise-grade technology, you should also have a lot of enterprises wanting to use it. So when we look at some of the use cases that are currently being pursued, obviously, we are building some of these DeFi primitives. We have, early implementations of tokens and token standards on Casper. And what I'm particularly excited about is, several use cases. So one is, you may laugh about it, but I think it's still a fun use case, is Meta Cask, which is a rare whiskey cask NFT marketplace. So it basically makes an asset class, which is rare whiskey, accessible through an NFT marketplace. So I think it's very interesting. The other aspect is IPv. It's widely published. IPv, ipwe.com is a productive environment on Casper, which already today mints IP as NFTs on Casper. So you have IP represented on Casper. And obviously the target here is both inventors, creators, but as well as, enterprises that use this environment for enterprise IP lifecycle management.
Yeah, the NFT industry is fascinating. I'm curious on which way it's going to continue to grow, and sort of what sectors outside of Web3 and finance will next adopt this technology. And as you mentioned at the beginning, Casper Network is, it's not like an EVM chain, and normally a lot of these NFTs are on some kind of ERC NFT standard, but I'm guessing Casper has to build out its own standards for NFTs and go through those hurdles of adoption of the wallets or the infrastructure. How does Casper work on that, and how do you sort of compete with the network effect of the standards that have already been created in NFTs and improve upon those?
Yeah, that's a big challenge, obviously. So one aspect is we have the advantage that we do have enterprise users, right? We have productive environments, and Casper Labs as an implementation partner to enterprises basically has a privileged position to understand what these companies want and what it will be the next applications. At the same time, on the association side, which is really about the community applications, dApps, wide adoption, the developer tools, we are focused also on NFTs, and I have published, or we have published, the association has published NFTs as one of the priority areas, and I'll explain to you in a second why I believe this is very important. But yes, of course, we had to create our own standard. We obviously copied 720, ALC 721 and other standards early on. But we believe that, they are either lacking in security or, they are not meeting the requirements, and not just of companies, but of any project, because they are just not very flexible and they're not very adoptable and adaptable. So we have created a standard which you can choose actually whether the NFT that you're creating is mutable or immutable. So we have metadata fields that can be changed depending on what you choose at the beginning, at the inception, and because we have a very flexible account model, you can actually manage these NFTs and these contracts afterwards much more flexible than in other environments with tools that you would normally expect as a developer to be available. And in other environments, you have to create other smart contracts. You have to have smart contracts rule other smart contracts, and we eliminate a lot of those items. The reason why I'm so excited about NFTs is not because of NFTs or because of JPEGs and yet another project putting out a lot of JPEGs and mint and mate, but because I truly believe that this technology now enables you to claim property to obviously digital items seamlessly, right? Because once they're digital, you can claim basically property and you can document your property rights. But it really allows individuals, creators, companies, projects to completely, in a new way and much more efficient way, assert ownership and enable use of intellectual property, any kind of property, in a way that will create and enable so much economic activity and completely change the way how economies work. So that's why I'm so excited about this. And when you think about NFTs or what it really represents, I personally started talking about cryptographically secured property rights a while ago, and it just happened so that cryptographically secured property rights are CSPR. So I'm very excited about
That's very
that
cool
moniker.
Definitely. And you mentioned there about security issues in NFTs and the expansive ecosystem of NFTs on Ethereum and the EVM compatible smart contract platforms. There's, even though the smart contracts have been around for a long time, there's still a lot of security vulnerabilities in this way that the smart contracts are out, right? And I've seen countless times where some celebrity has an NFT and all of a sudden it's stolen from their wallet, or they approve some smart contract that has malicious code, and there's a lot of them, and all of a sudden the NFTs are siphoned out of their wallet. So I appreciate the concern there on the security side, and that's one of the fundamentals that I think needs to be put in place, with Casper's smart contracts to ensure that everything is, obviously it works well, but that there's no flaws in the system at all.
Yeah, the other aspect is, the issue here is also that we've kind of created a centralized system still, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense that you have an NFT in your wallet and the underlying is not controlled, or is controlled by a centralized entity. That kind of doesn't make sense, defeats the purpose. Now, there are so many questions that are not solved, right? So key management for creators. Imagine that in the future, really musicians and creators, but it could also be people that develop new code, right? It could be the people that develop formulas, chemical formulas, or biotech, etc. I mean, they have a real opportunity to document their inventions and also commercialize their inventions and monetize their inventions in completely different ways. But then, of course, we better not give the power again to centralized institutions that hold the data and the files, right? We also need to decentralize where this is stored. We need to make sure that it's securely stored, decentralized, etc. So those are all questions that they don't keep me up at night, but they certainly keep me busy during the day.
Definitely, and mentioning there about just inventors and housing markets and all of these thousands of different industries that have yet to tap into this technology, probably partially because of the infancy of it and the security vulnerabilities that we're seeing on the mainstream platforms. Once that's fixed, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Casper grows into those industries, and hopefully these industries adopt Casper's standard for NFTs and can bring that digital ownership and transferability to the people that need it. And because you're pretty early on in this, and you really need to make sure that the smart contract aspect of it is laid out properly. I feel like looking through Casper and following along, doing interviews over the past few years with the team, the Casper protocol, the growth of it and the market cap is actually already fairly large. Considering that there's still a lot of stuff to be flushed out. How do you see Casper positioned out of the smart contract platforms? Out of the top ones, and do you consider Casper to sort of be in that top tier?
Yes, we do. I mean, obviously, we believe that looking at our peers, so which would be smart contracting platforms, is more important than just a ranking, on the market cap itself. We also believe, and I think it's well worth to note that we record this, on November 11th, just after, major challenges in the entire infrastructure of our industry. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important to note that we believe it still comes down to the technology that you build, right? So, which is why, lucky or not, intended or not, deliberate or not, we need to point out that, TVL may not be the end all, and it is really about the applications in the end that live on these infrastructures, which is why we believe, as I said, that we should be compared, and we are comparing ourselves to smart contracting platforms. Obviously, we like industry, information hubs like Messari, where you can see these smart contracting platforms, where we are probably always ranked between top 20 and 30. Considering who is ahead of us, depending on how you look at some of these platforms, I would say we're probably top 15 of the more serious projects that are technology oriented. So I think those are areas that we have to remind ourselves again, on this day, and probably these coming weeks, also when this is published, that it's in the end, it's early. It's about the technology, and it's about the way that we build the technology so it can be used by a very large amount of developers. And that is what we set out to do, and that's what the course that we have taken from the beginning, and that we will continue over the next few years. Well
said, Ralf. And speaking of having a large community, I was looking through the enterprise side, which I think is a competitive advantage for Casper, focusing on these large clients, because there are huge companies that continually are looking to find ways to take advantage of this technology. And I saw that Casper was working with IBM, one of the biggest. Can you talk about the enterprise side and that partnership with IBM?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. Obviously, I am with the Casper Association, so our task is to really foster the open source community and find enough people and more people to contribute to this great protocol. And Casper Labs, which is independent from the Casper Association, but a large contributor to the core of the technology, of course, they are targeting large corporate, not any size corporation, not just large, but they're targeting enterprise use cases that they want to develop with their customers on Casper, obviously. So we're very excited that IBM has also publicly stated that this is interesting technology. There are atomic swaps between Hyperledger Fabric and Casper. There are quite a few people, surprisingly, when you start looking in the marketplace, that have built and are building on Hyperledger. but they need some kind of public outlet, right? So maybe the future is not only multi-chain, but the future is also probably more hybrid than we think of today. So we believe there is a space for, you know, private chains, hybrid environments, and public environments. And I think, you know, to be able to operate on that spectrum is key for any of the technology providers going forward. In addition, we have to say it's also key for the developer community, right? Because in the end, developers want to contribute relevant technology that is being used in the world. And while, you know, I think I said in the beginning how I came to the technology. I mean, you know, as a true enthusiast in 2015, 16, that saw the opportunity for this technology to build, you know, a more equitable society, to provide more control for creators over their contributions, to, you know, to allow people to monetize their contributions or their work, you know, in a different way in the future. This is huge, but at the same time, we should not forget that in the end, you know, we would like to get paid for our work, and, you know, a lot of economic activity still comes from companies, and and it must be our goal that we equip developers with the tools and the infrastructure necessary to contribute to the open source code base. And obviously this is true for all the projects, right? But to open source code base, now in our case Casper, that enables, you know, new ways of economic development, improve society, but also, of course, provides infrastructure for economic interactions that are, you know, governed by companies, basically, right? So new business models that we cannot think of today should be built on this technology.
It's very exciting. And looking forward throughout, you know, obviously there's a long journey ahead to expand the ecosystem to where the team wants Casper to be. Looking at the next 6-month or 1-year roadmap for 2023, what do you think are some of the major things that Casper needs to roll out next to get to that next stage of development?
Yeah, so we've stated quite a few times to the community, we are not the easiest chain to engage with because of you know, you have to be committed to find the documentation that you want to find and the one you want to use. So we are going to improve that. That's a very short-term target for us, and it will be available. So hopefully, even by the time this is published, you know, there will be a lot better infrastructure for developers to find resources and to interact with us. So that's one area. The second area is standards. There will be more standards, more primitives released and also made available. Very important, so people, you know, can save a bit of time, but they can also see what was implemented and how it works. So those are two areas that are very important to us. Then when you think about the improvements to the protocol and the upgrades, we will be releasing 1.5 in the near future, but our goal is to get to a 2.0, 2.x version within the next 6 to 9 months, I would say the latest, maybe 4 to 6 months, where, you know, some really groundbreaking innovations will become reality, and we can show the community and also the larger world what it can mean to build on Casper and why we believe that we are so future-proof. So those are some areas. Maybe I want to say something around capital markets and finance briefly. So we believe we have started a number of projects around this topic of how the finance industry, both legacy but also the future finance industry in DeFi, so both CeFi and DeFi, can benefit from blockchain technology. And we believe that we have some exciting technology coming out. We cannot talk a lot about it, but there will be, you know, announcement around how legacy financial services firms actually use the Casper technology to bring efficiency, transparency, and also automation, you know, to their business model and to the financial industry.
Wow, that's a big one. Well, I'm looking forward to all those updates. And what is the best way, Ralf, to follow along with the updates? And as you mentioned, you know, talking to the community about more documentation, more communication. What are the best channels to stay in touch with the Casper team?
So we have a very responsive Discord environment. So if you really are a developer, you should definitely, I mean, you are on Discord already, but you should join our Discord environment and Discord servers. There is also very active community in many languages, also present on this Discord channel. So in case, you know, you're more comfortable in another language than English, there's quite a few communities there. Then, of course, Twitter is somewhat active for us. We have a lot of Twitter followers. And Telegram is basically, like many projects, the place to really come. But on the Discord side, so if you're more technically interested, community member or programmer, you should really look at Discord. There are always people responding to your questions. There's tech support, and we have also a fairly disciplined and unfortunately centralized, but that brings efficiency response system for technical requests that we answer.
Great, thank you so much, Ralf. I will leave all those social links as well in the description box below to make it easy for the viewers to follow along. I appreciate your insights into Casper and where the protocol is going. I'm really looking forward to seeing the updates that you mentioned there, and let's definitely follow up in the near future when those updates roll out, and we can talk about how the protocol continues to expand. So thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you, Ashton. Great to be here. It's an awesome show. I really like all the quality speakers that you have. Great seeing you.
Thank you.